You may say nothing, but you would hold a positive attitude. Even if you don't say much, they'll understand over time you're not saying much. They may actually turn to you at one time, say, you've changed a little. You're not saying much. And at that point in time, you understand that you're still in love with your friends, and they're in love with you. They're friends. And you're not going to say anything to them or at them that would change that. You're not going to oppose them or tell them they're wrong. Instead, if you're asked, you might say, I am more comfortable today than I ever have been. I'm seeing some positive things on the planet. And you might then have a list ready. This has happened to me. I've seen this and that. And I know it's a tough thing, but that's why I'm not saying much. And then at the same time you say, but I love being with you. Thank you. Do you see the wisdom in this? Suddenly, you are mirroring the grandness of what you believe. There was a time, dear ones, when if you were too spiritual, you removed yourself. Let me give you an example I've given many, many times. The shaman in the village, in the indigenous, in past times, almost always lived alone. The shaman in the indigenous, in past times, in past energies, almost always lived outside of the village alone without a partner. Alone, outside the village. Have you ever put this together? Because they were so apart from the consciousness of the village that they had to remove themselves. They also felt that by removing themselves, it made them somewhat more accessible for those who needed help, because they would go see the shaman. And the shaman, of course, was an elevated entity. They could heal, they could advise, they could do all of these things. Sometimes they even worked for the chief of the village as shamans, but they were isolated and often alone. One of the attributes of a light worker in the past, even as little as a decade ago, was to sequester yourself and don't be part of society. This also was an invitation to become a little strange. And you know what I mean. There are those who still today say, I'm going to show off what I believe in past lives and meditation and all the things that I believe in that are spiritual. I'm just going to do them no matter what anybody says. And then suddenly you find yourself alone. Can I say it again? Being weird, being different, being too woo-woo helps no one on this planet. Did you hear that? Feel free to disagree, but then think about it. Integration with kindness and compassion and wisdom is the goal of the old soul. Not being strange, not removing yourself, not being so odd no one wants to talk to you. How does that help anyone on the planet but yourself? It doesn't. So the answer about being in an old energy when you are in a new one is integrating with wisdom, without combating the old energy, but fitting in a grand way. And don't be afraid that the negativity will rub off on you, dear ones. And we've talked about this before, because that bubble of light you have keeps you protected. Only purity and benevolent things are yours at this time. That's lesson 1. I'll see you soon. And so it is.
And just allow a few more minutes to slowly adjust into this next part of our program. If you've had your beautiful eyes closed, you may open your eyes and slowly bring your awareness back into your body, back into the room. And now that you are fully present in your body, in the room, Lee and I are extremely delighted with the range of speakers that come and join us. And Lee, I know you are absolutely excited about today's guest.
I am very excited about today's guest. Yes, I am.
So we have joining us Suzanne Geeseman. Now, Suzanne, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful. So let's tell the folks all about Suzanne.
This is the going to be the short version of the bio. There is so much to know about this woman, and it's a dichotomous kind of a thing. And this is where I'm very excited to bring you something that truly is special. Suzanne Geeseman is a retired U.S. Navy commander who served as a commanding officer and specifically as an aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I'd like to say that about 5 times because now we're getting into some very, very high stuff. I happen to know a story, and she probably won't have time to tell it, and that's during 9/11, where she and the Joint Chiefs was on their way to Europe on an airplane, and when they got the message, they turned right around, came back, and actually flew over New York and saw what was going on there. So she's probably have a lot of things to say about that time in her life. She served tours in Navy intelligence, taught politics, or political science actually, at the U.S. Naval Academy, had overseas assignments in Panama and Japan. Her military decorations, if you know anything about these, I hope you do, include the Combat Action Ribbon and the Defense Superior Service Medal.
Now, Suzanne is a messenger of hope. She offers the awakened way, which is a path to knowing who you are and why you're here. Whether it's in her books or recordings, her classes and workshops, her weekly radio show, or her one-on-one sessions, Suzanne's evidential communications with the spirit realms provides stunning evidence of life after death. Now, as we said previously, she's the founder and teacher of the Awakened Way, a path to knowing who you are, why you're here. And this all deals with consciousness and our interconnectedness.
Suzanne is the author of 13 books. She's been a keynote presenter and speaker for organizations including Edward Casey's Association.
Oh,
Edgar, not Edward.
We don't know Edward.
We don't know Edward.
Who's Edward?
No,
we don't know him.
Right. Edgar Casey's Association for Research and Enlightenment, the Academy for Spiritual and Consciousness Studies, the Afterlife Research and Education Institute, and the International Association for Near-Death Studies. Now, are you having trouble putting these things together with what I told you to the beginning? Many people do, and that would be the very first question that I would ask you, and I know you've had to answer it perhaps hundreds and hundreds of times, Suzanne. What happened to take you from a U.S. Navy commander to spiritual teacher and medium?
Well, it was a major wake-up call, but I do have to say that after that introduction in my bio, I guess I'm not allowed to slouch, huh?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, gosh. I was just thinking about that this morning, actually, about how it often takes a wake-up call to awaken to the greater reality. Because as I listened to that biography, I had to remind myself again, that's my story. But I know now it's not who I am at the ultimate level. And we have to have a story, and I'm very proud of that one, but it was not without its pain. And that's what caused the wake-up call. It was when, let's just backtrack a little bit to 9/11. Being up close and personal that day, going back to our office building, the Pentagon, with this gaping hole in the side, as I stared at that with the head of the U.S. military, right, standing side by side with him, I just started saying, how could those people who were there 1 minute sitting at their desks be gone? Why were they there and not somebody else? What is this all about, to have your life cut so short, so quickly? And I started asking those deep questions, but I did not find satisfactory answers. And I really didn't like dealing with the grief of so many people around me there at the Pentagon. So I retired with exactly 20 years to the day since I took the oath. And my husband and I went off sailing in our sailboat. We decided to live our dream while we could. And life was idyllic. I effectively ran away from all that tragedy. And then life caught up with me because I can see now I had a different path to follow. And it's this one. And while it was an honor to serve the way I did, there's no honor that can compare to the work I'm doing now. But if anybody had told me when I wore a uniform all those years, very left brain, logical, analytical, that I would be a medium and a mystic and a teacher of these things, a daily channeler of wisdom from the higher realms, I would have just laughed. I said, who are you talking about? But that wake-up call came when we got an email on our boat. We had sailed across the Atlantic. We were off Croatia. And it wasn't like email today. It came through our single sideband radio. This is 15 years ago now, this last week, in fact. And it said, phone home, it's important. So we actually had to sail a day to find a phone. It's not like today. And we stood there thinking something big was up, and it was. It was the news that my stepdaughter, Susan, who was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, had been struck and killed by lightning while crossing the flight line at work. And she was 6 months pregnant at the time. So all of the tragedy that we ran away from on 9/11, I ran away from. I couldn't run away from this. So now I really had to ask those questions. And I got answers.
You must have had some very profound answers. I want you to walk us through, at that point in time, what did you do that would take you to that path specifically?
Okay. Well, the first turning point for me was looking at Susan's body in the coffin. And some people squirm when you talk about that, but for me it was an epiphany because that body looked nothing like the Susan I knew. And I just stood there in shock saying, that's not Susan. That's not Susan. So then where is she? Because you clearly can't kill that spirit because that spirit's gone from this body. And I, being very mission-oriented, set the goal in that moment, I'm going to find her. Wow. I've heard about these people called mediums. So I'll find a medium, I'll learn about the afterlife, and I'll start meditating. 15 years ago, as you know, not a whole lot of people were meditating like they do today. And I started every day with the sole intention of connecting with Susan, not to expand my consciousness, none of the things that actually unfolded from that practice. I had no idea the benefits that would accrue from that. And that's what happened first. I started to open up to adventures in consciousness. Did not connect with Susan at first at all, but my intuition came back online. Meanwhile, I'm reading about the afterlife. I'm reading about mediums. And the next really big turning point was when I took my husband, Ty, a retired Navy destroyer captain, even more left brain than I was, to see a medium. I found one who didn't know our name, didn't know anything about us. So I was open-minded, but a little skeptical. I didn't want to be gullible and conned into somebody who might look us up online. I have clients today that I know feel the same way, and I totally get that. Well, that woman was a godsend because she brought through verifiable evidence that Susan was right there in the room with us, knocked my socks off, left me sobbing and walking around in a daze for days. I couldn't deny this is real.
I'm just going to interrupt right now, and I know you have something to say. There are hundreds and hundreds of parents that need to hear this. And I think you know that, and I think you're working with them. And I think you're perhaps going to tell about that. That is the best news any of them could ever have. Thank you so much.
Well, it is the best news. This is all about healing, your program.
That's
and
right.
There's nothing more healing than to find out that, okay, I understand I can't get their physical body back, but you mean I can continue to have a relationship with them, not just when you're talking to a medium, but ongoing. Now, we don't need to get into how I discovered I'm a medium, but it's all a result of the meditation and the desire to do so. And so once I discovered that anybody can connect with their loved ones, I was all in. I was starting to get that same kind of evidence myself. And now when I do readings for people, I ask the spirits every time, tell me something going on in your loved one's life now to show them you are still part of their life. Anytime they think about you, anytime you think about them, show me the current stuff. And they do, and it's life-changing.
That is so beautiful, because I think nothing is worse than losing your own child.
Nothing is worse.
It's so... I don't even have words.
It's debilitating.
It's debilitating. And yet what you said is that every parent, there is not a birthday goes by, they don't remember them. There is not a moment where they're not thinking about their child. So what you said was beautiful, to have that relationship where they're invited in. And how do they navigate inviting them in without the pain? Because many people, it's painful to have that.
Well, it's just you hold in your heart, you feel that pain, and you turn it around instantly by saying, that's love. And now with the awareness that they're still here, that they're with you, you change your mindset and understand you don't move forward without them. You move forward together. You ask them to be part of your life, to put insights into your mind that come from them, to continue to give you signs that they're around. If you're not aware of the signs, you don't notice them. But once you start to catch on to how your loved one communicates uniquely with you, it becomes an ongoing relationship. And I totally agree with you, Monica, what you said about the worst thing that could happen. And yet, over the years of connecting with people who've had loved ones pass, for the person going through the grief, I may not have had the kind of relationship with my mother as other people do, but some people grieve their mothers or their fathers or their dog or their cat as much as other people grieve children. So I've learned to not even compare one loss to another, because love is love.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I love about your work, and only because I've come from an engineering background, is that you insist on evidence. Tell us more about that. You got some examples?
I do, and who am I insisting on it from? Those in the spirit world. So I know that they know I do it with love, and that I ask for it because they know I wouldn't do this work if they didn't give me some really good evidence.
That's right.
One that pops to mind right away is the young man who took his own life. His mother's sitting in front of me. I don't know who she wants to hear from, but I sense right away, oh, you have a son across the veil. Yes, I do. He's showing me he took his own life. So that's evidence right there when I don't know it. But the real evidence just keeps flowing when he says he jumped off a bridge. His mother says, you want to know? Yes, he did. And do you want to know where? I said, no, he's right here. Let me ask him. He says, it's the Verrazano Bridge in New York. Yes, that's it. And he says that he was bipolar because he's showing me a symbol I have for that. Yes, he was. He tells me he wasn't taking his meds because his girlfriend didn't want him to take them. You see how these are things I couldn't know. Now, skeptics might say you're just reading his mother's mind because she's thinking about him. And I'll tell you, that is possible, that a medium can pick up on thoughts and memories. But this is one of my favorite stories to share, because what happened at the end of that reading shows this is not mind reading. Because I have a whole list of possibilities of evidence that those across the veil can share. How did you die? What were you like? What are your favorite things? What are your favorite songs? All those kinds of things. What's going on in your loved one's life now? In this case, the reading was coming to an end, and I suddenly remembered he didn't give me one of my key pieces of evidence. So I didn't ask it out loud, because if I did, his mother would have thought the answer, and I could have picked that up. I wanted to show I wasn't mind reading. So I silently said to him, who's right here, your loved ones who are past are communicating real time. It's a conversation. And I said, so you didn't tell me. What did you do? What was your work? And instead of answering, he swept out an arm and pointed out the window. And he said to me silently, what your husband is doing now. I looked out the window behind my client, his mother, and there's Ty kneeling down at the back of our bus, stripping wires at the hitch. I said to his mom, your son tells me he was an electrician. And she said, yes, he was. And she didn't realize what a magical moment that was. That shows all of us this is real time. They see what's going on, He didn't just answer the question. He showed me something going on outside the window. I could tell you stories like this for days. It's what makes me wake up with joy instead of saying, oh, Susan's gone. What a loss. These words keep us stuck. Instead, I can say, Susan, I can't have you back, but your passing led to this awakening for me. And if we can take your death and help others find healing, but beyond that, to come to know that we are part of something so much greater than this limited story we're living, that is the greatest healing that any of us can achieve. It's so much more than mediumship. It's about awakening to the fact that we are all connected at this level of love, of consciousness, and it never stops.
I am jumping up and down because this has been one of the main themes of Kryon, just as for the 31 years that I am channeling this, and it's repeated, that they're not gone, they're not gone, they're not gone. And as you say, you may not have them in 3D, but they're not gone. And the consciousness remains, and the love remains. And then the next question here is it sounds like you're interviewing those who've passed on. There's got to be a back and forth. What do they have to say?
And that's the point. And a good evidential medium seeks that balance between the evidence and the messages. Because when I went to a medium, if that medium hadn't backed up Susan's messages that I'm still here and I love you so much, I would have left that reading saying she made that up. Because, as you know, the messages are almost all the same. We love you. We're fine here. Life is eternal. But yet I don't just say those messages. Each spirit says it in their own way that speaks to the heart of their loved one because they know exactly what they need to hear. Some of the most healing messages are, it was okay that you pulled the plug at the end. Thank you for taking care of me at the end of my life. So you can see how even within the message, we get evidence. They say, I forgive you for those last words you said that were harmful and hurtful. I'm not hurt anymore. I see with the big picture why you said that. I was just as wrong. I forgive you. And they allow the sitter to forgive them, and they say, it's all good. I love you. Nothing matters more than that.
I'm also curious because your stepdaughter, you said, was pregnant, and that just went to a whole nother level of her and her unborn child going. So did you actually connect with her unborn child as well?
Well, that was what left me in a daze in that reading that Ty and I went to. That medium knew nothing about us. Here we had this great communication with Susan with evidence that she was right there, including the very last gesture she made when we said goodbye to her the last time we saw her. And then the medium says, oh, your stepdaughter's bringing with her a baby boy who she wants to introduce to you. But he's standing back shyly, sucking his thumb because he doesn't know you. Oh, my God, we were sobbing. And you know that I have never felt Liam's personality because he didn't take one on in this lifetime. He's just this shining light. And when I do readings for people and they have a miscarried baby or an aborted baby, it doesn't matter how that little soul did not come into a human life. The energy they exude is the same. It's just this sparkling light of loving feeling, and they want their loved ones to know, I'm around you and I love you.
Beautiful.
I'm kind of probably pushing the envelope here because I have you. How does past lives fit into any of this? Because I know that's a bit of a study.
Well, once in a while, an influence from a past life will come up in a reading. I focus strictly on this lifetime, and my guides, Sanaya, have said, focus here. This is what the opportunities we want you to work on. But if people are really stuck and don't understand why they have certain traits, occasionally that will come up in a reading because it's something that the soul chose to continue working on.
Have you noticed any changes in the energy of communication or anything in these last 8 years or so?
Do you mean personally or with everyone?
With everyone.
with everyone. I feel that people are so much more open to mediumship. People are learning that if others can communicate, so can I. And that's my main message, that we can all do this, because the communication happens through consciousness and through the soul. And once we learn that we are that's our essential nature, then we learn to tap into that. And more people are accepting that as reality, as possible. And once that snowball gets rolling, look out.
I happen to know right now that you, and I'm giving this away, are at Unity Village, and you're there because you're giving some conferences. You tell what's going on there.
It's called my Holy You Retreat. I mean, it's a play on words between wholeness and holy. And we just had 80 people get together in absolute joy of being together in person. And the love, we all came into alignment with our true nature. And that was my goal, for them to feel that love, to learn who you really are. It was a great mixture of sharing, exercises, evidence from across the veil, so much love. And I'm doing it again in a week. We're going to do it again in October, because people responded so beautifully. The one word that kept coming up was transformational and life-changing.
Yeah. I understand that you have a program, or you did, or something, and you can correct me. Are you helping other parents who have gone through what you went through?
Well, I always support the group Helping Parents Heal, beautiful nonprofit organization, and I support them by talking to the parents in webinars and in person for their meetings and at their conferences. But I help parents, I help children, I help siblings connect themselves, and I do that through my online courses and my monthly mentoring webinars online. I have lots of free gifts on my website, daily messages from Spirit. This is my mission. Ask my husband. It's a burning desire in me to just, whatever Spirit gives me, I immediately share with everyone. And the beautiful part is, as we said, it gets better for everyone around us, but mediumship always gets better for the medium when they're dedicated to this. And so I'm excited because it just keeps getting better, and I get to share it with kindred spirits all the time.
On a personal level, is your husband on board with everything, or is he?
He is 100% on board.
Oh, yay.
He doesn't always. He's the grounded one. We often say, if it weren't for Ty, I might go floating off into the sky. He's very human, and yet he totally supports this work, and I know I couldn't do it without him.
This is great. Can you give me another story or so? Because it's so heartwarming to hear, perhaps, of something like that, like the suicide that you had.
Yes, one of my favorite ones is that through Helping Parents Heal, I came to know a beautiful soul across the veil named Carly Hughes. And her mother, Irene, is now my next door neighbor, because we hit it off so well. Ty and I built a house right around the corner from Irene. And I mean, that's a friendship, huh? And so because I had given several readings to Irene already, occasionally Carly drops in on me. And one day I said, Irene, Carly tells me there's a dog treat under your couch, and we know that's impossible because my two dachshunds are running around on the floor. Your dog, Linus, the big golden doodle, is running around the floor. If there were a treat under there, they'd be scratching at it. And, Irene, you're obsessive. You sweep your floors every day. So I must be wrong about this, but we got to look. So Irene gets down on her hands and knees. She goes, no dog treat under the couch, Suzanne. And I said, no, Irene, you're looking under the love seat. Carly said it's under the couch. So she gets a flashlight. She gets down on her hands and knees and says, oh, my God, and pulls out a dog treat that was under the couch. And my husband and her husband were sitting at the counter, and they turn and they look, and they said, that is over the top. And I said, Carly, how did you know that was there? And Carly responded, X-ray vision. That our world is solid to us, but not to those in the spirit world. They can see the big picture. They can see through walls and furniture. It's a relative reality, which means that this world is really not as solid as it seems. And the really funny moment, which I hope will give people pause to think about what they say and always say loving things, is when she said, tell my stepfather, Tony, I'm not a prima donna. And the previous Sunday at a Helping Parents Heal local meeting that Irene had been leading, Tony said, well, Carly always was a prima donna. So they're spying on us, and that's a beautiful thing.
I had a personal experience, and I'll just tell you now. This was some years ago where I sat, and Monica, you were there, and we sat around with some officers from the Pentagon, and we were in Washington. And they all had one thing in common. They all worked in the Pentagon, and they were all Kryon readers. In other words, there is enlightenment there. Would you agree?
I hadn't seen that, but I retired quite a while ago. I'm sure there's enlightenment there because it can't not be there when you have that many souls gathered in one place. But I've been trying to reach through a group of bereaved parents who have, well, anybody who's lost anybody in the military. See how we use that word lost, but it's really a misnomer.
Yes.
And have not made good inroads yet because they hear that M word, mediumship, and they get a little frightened, but we're working on that.
Oh, that's delightful. Yeah. We've got about 4 minutes left, and I'd like you to please just tell about your website, what you offer, and then, for instance, somebody may be listening to this right now, I've never heard of you, they've lost a child, they think they're gone, they say, oh, wow, and want to get a hold of you. Is that something that you would offer as a help to get in touch?
I would recommend they go to my website because I've had so many people reaching out now, I really can't give that personal answer, but there's so many ways we can connect. SuzanneGeeseman.com is the website. I would say the first place to start is at my frequently asked questions page, which is just an incredible treasure trove of answers and resources. And we have online courses and in-person courses that I do to teach people how to connect. My most recent one, Personal Mediumship, is a very popular course now because not everybody wants to be a medium, but wouldn't we all love to connect with our loved ones ourselves? And then I have books and meditations. I have gift meditations. I have a daily message from Spirit, special channeling sessions with my guides. The website, you can get lost in it, and dozens of videos online, all aimed at helping people know you're not alone. Your loved ones who have passed are still right here, and you are so loved.
This is probably one of the most healing things I think you could offer anyone. Especially those who have had any what you call loss. Anyone who's passed, especially early, especially if it's your child. And that's why you're on the healing show. And as you mentioned it early. And that's what we believe. And that's the healing of the heart. It changes changes lives. And so I'm so grateful that you're here, and so grateful for you and what happened to you that we can hear about. And we can feel for you. And at the same time, we see what happened. What was the name of your daughter?
It's Susan. Susan Marie.
It's Susan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Susan is so pleased with you, my dear. Maybe this is why she came. It's very possible to push you into helping this planet. Yes.
It's all part of the plan.
Yes.
And that's why we don't see it as a tragedy anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
You can always choose your point of view.
Yes.
From the human side, it's a tragedy. From the soul side, what a gift.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, I think you have brought so much hope for those who are hopefully listening to this, that they are still with us. Mm-hmm. You are not alone. You are loved.
Yeah.
They are the messages of Kryon. And for you to demonstrate it personally is what the core teachings are about. We have a personal loving God who knows your name.
Where the rubber meets the road, as they say.
Yeah.
This is it. This is really core truth. Last word for you to our listeners.
That you are worthy. You cannot possibly be unworthy. And if anybody ever told you anything less than that, they were not awake. So tune into your heart that already knows the truth. And that's the most healing message of all.
I think that when we are interviewed, that's pretty much what we say as well. We really have an alliance of consciousness. Thank you so much for being here.
Both. What an honor.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. And we are now going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll see you back for the Circle of 12.